So, hello everyone. It is nice to see all of you and so many of you here with us today. It's good to see so many of you in the chat. Feel free to introduce yourselves. I am going to get ready to hand things off, and we will get ready to get started here today. Thank you all for joining us. Again, I'm Tori Giffen here with online programs at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. We're so excited to kick off our instructional design speaker series tonight with one of our guests here, Stacey. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Carolina, who is here from the department, and we will get started.
Thank you so much, Tori, and good evening and good morning, good day to everybody. We're super excited to have you all. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation. My name is Carolina Cuesta, and I am a teaching assistant professor in the EPOL department in the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. And as Tori was saying, we are super excited, but we are super excited because this is the first event of this series. So we're kicking off this amazing series. And we are excited because we created this event for you, right? It's not for us, it's for you. And it's not only to discuss possibilities and opportunities of this amazing field that is instructional design, but actually is to hear also from experts in the field, right? It's like to know more about what is instructional design, trends in the field, challenges in the job, what skills, competencies, and knowledge do you need to thrive in the field. But we will learn from different perspectives, from experts. You will be able to ask questions if you have from these experts and have information from firsthand if you want to ask them, and if you want to start a career in this field, like to interact with them. And that is why it's so important for us to have this space for you. And we are very excited that you are part of this right now. So our first guest, and we are very excited for this too, because it's very close to our heart, right? Our first guest is Miss Stacey Hietikko. I hope that I am pronouncing it
Really good.
yes, please.
It's not an easy name.
She's an instructional design and technology leader with a proven track record of driving impactful learning experiences. And I'm going to highlight some things here because I see among our assistants some of my students, and they know when we talk about learning experiences and learning outcomes that those things are very hard to do, right? So if we say that Stacey is an expert, right, on driving impactful learning experiences, you will have to listen to her, right? So she serves right now as a senior instructional designer and training program manager, where she plays a pivotal role in shaping the company's global training content initiatives. With many, many years of experience as a director in IT training, she has honed her expertise in leveraging technology to enhance learning outcomes, right? And she serves as a senior instructional designer and program manager at Yahoo, right? And we all have heard about Yahoo, right? We know that it's renowned company, right? So we might have a lot of questions for Stacey and her expertise. So also something important and interesting is that Stacey holds a Master's of Education degree in Educational Policy Organization and Leadership from the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, as well as a graduate certificate in Instructional System Management and Leadership and an Instructional Design Master Track certificate. And I see a bunch of my students there, right? So if you have questions on how to do that transition, this is the moment to ask what and how to do that transition and her experience with that. So without further ado, Stacey, thank you so much for accepting this invitation. And well, tell us a little bit about you and what inspired you to pursue a career in instructional design.
First, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here today. I definitely love very much what I do, and I'm very passionate about it. And so I hope to be able to do this justice in letting people know about this career that I find just very fulfilling and wonderful, and look forward to any questions that you may have. You know, as Carolina said, I am a instructional designer with Yahoo. I have been there for approximately 4 years now. And Yahoo is still a tech company. We actually own AOL. That's still around, in case anybody wasn't aware. And all of that falls under my purview in that we call it own whatever line of business we take care of, and I own Yahoo Mail. And AOL Mail, assist with that. And in that role, what I actually do on a day-to-day basis is I create training content and training curriculums for our global call centers. We have 3 major call centers, one in the Philippines, one in Romania, and another in Dominican Republic. And so we are very, very busy. Being a tech company, we try to always be at the forefront of innovative technology initiatives. Currently, AI is blowing up everywhere, right? And so that does require quite a bit of communication with our call center agents, who are the front line to assisting our members. And so they need to be the experts as well. So that requires us to make sure that they are constantly trained and updated with current initiatives, right? And prior to doing this with Yahoo, I had another kind of career in IT, but they were married. I was the head of IT, but also the head of training. The company I worked for previously was a payroll service, and we had a proprietary software and hardware that we supported. So there were training initiatives to support that as well, to make sure that customer service was up to date. And then the other hat was actually the true IT role, network administration, and everything within that company as well. So there's been a path to get here. And what ended up happening is that particular company that I was at before Yahoo, the owners decided to sell, and a global pandemic came on the scene. And I was left with the choice of, do I try and find another role in IT, or do I go and find something with training? And I decided I was going to go back to school, and I took the master track because I wanted to train. I always loved that part of my job. I love working with people. I love learning, but I also love educating. And so it was a perfect fit. And taking the master track courses with 2 of the professors I see here still right now, Dr. O and Dr. Huang are on, helped me to really decide that this was truly the path I wanted to go down, and really just had me delving into everything instructional design. It was things I was doing, but I did not have a lot of verbiage to support. Um, when I talked with people about what I was doing or the theories behind it. And so that master track then led me to continue, and I decided that I wanted to pursue a master's degree in this. And so it just kind of snowballed to the point that ended up in May with my master's degree from U of I here. So, and the whole time that I did get a job, by the way, and I will tell you that it was my portfolio from one of my classes. I think it was the Learning Tech class that really helped solidify me getting that role with Yahoo. Um, so a little toot to you guys. Thank you for a job. But everything about that really prepared me for what I'm doing now and gave me the confidence to really pursue that and just go forward with this company.
Amazing, Stacey, amazing story. And for example, what do you think were like specific skills that you develop in, for example, learning technologies that gave you that trampoline to boost your confidence when you
Oh,
were in your role?
yeah, there was a lot that we did within those classes, and for that master's track certificate, there's like a marriage of the two of them, right? They flow from one to the other, at least the time when I was doing it. And so what gave me a lot of confidence was the breakdown of creating at the time we had to create a full-blown course. And part of my daily life, my husband is involved in making beer. And so I decided, and with my team, we were going to make a course of Beer 101, how to brew beer, and go through all the steps to do that. And those classes, along with working with groups, really helped to, figure out, especially like an analysis, right? Breaking down the whole, for anybody that's going to go into instructional design, the learning theories and the models that you follow, like the ADDIE model, right? And delving into that model through those courses and breaking that down step by step um, really helped to understand what it is uh, to create something like a training that you're going to present to a whole group of people, not just standing there saying, all right, watch me do this. Now you do this, right? So that part helped. And then I would definitely also say later on down the road too, in some of the other classes, having that basis of the educational theory behind everything. Um, and the educational psychology that also goes into this. So there was a lot. I looked at every course that I took at the university as a applicable medium for me to do better in my role at Yahoo. I have a fantastic manager at Yahoo. She fully supported me going to school while I was working. And, I would come out of classes and I'm like, hey, I think we need to start looking at doing things a little bit differently here. And here's why. And so throughout the entire time, I designed the courses that I took to make sure that they aligned with what I do, because I wanted that help in making me a better instructional designer for the company that I worked for, and just in general for the knowledge that I needed to have to be confident in what I do.
Yeah. And for example, for our students, and I believe that for any instructional designer, that we are, I think, and I tell this to my students a lot, we are mostly in the core of any business, right? Because we are observers. And when we find a problem, we can understand the root of the problem, or we can like give suggestions to the problem from different perspectives, not only from the training or the learning perspective, right? Because we have different perspectives, right? But when we try to communicate that idea or that perspective to other teams, my students tend to have some issues in the communication, right? Mostly when they work in their teams, right? So, for example, you work globally, right? And that you have cultural barriers working with teams, right? And that you have to work with budgets and big budgets, right? And that you have to work with different stakeholders and justify, right? Well, you have to make design choices that could put at risk different projects at the same time, right? Or that you have to make difficult choices that involve different teams. How do you handle that from the training perspective or the instructional design perspective as a project manager? Because we have different roles, right? We are project managers, we are problem solvers, we are the training people, we are the budgeteers, right? We have different roles at different moments, right? How do you handle that?
Yeah, that is always a very delicate situation, right? And I think that any initiative that we launch is launched based on a lot of discussions with the stakeholders, a lot of digging in and asking questions and getting that initial, needs analysis done, right? And I find that a lot of times in that, it's almost like being an investigative reporter, because you can ask a question, but if you do not ask the right question, you are not going to get the info that you need. And so it's really spending the time. Sometimes you get pushback because everybody's very busy, but giving somebody a rationale of why the time is necessary upfront and how that prevents a lot of things down the road from happening, is a way to kind of, uh, get your point across. But the other thing too is really understanding what it is that you do, and that, you know, uh, you are the expert in that room when it comes to training. You may not be the expert in the product. You may not be the expert in running, for example, a call center, but you are the expert in how that training should be conducted and why. And having that confidence to say, I understand. Let me give you this to think about as to why that may not work, or here's an idea that may even be better. Let's try this. And having that confidence to go in there and say, okay, this is what needs to happen. And same thing with the project management. Um, Realistically giving timelines, communicating. Constantly have these spreadsheets that I set up for every initiative that we have, and I manage everything through that. I share information constantly with people. We have dates and timelines. We work from what is our end goal, and we work kind of backwards to set up those dates and times and initiatives of who's going to do what. Um, so obviously, as with most things, communication is one of the biggest things, and staying on top of plans that you have, but also going back throughout the process and looking at it and evaluating, saying, all right, we've gotten this far, we're getting ready to go, and start creating the actual or develop the actual training. Do we need to look at something else? Because a lot of times within tech, you're throwing a curveball at the last minute due to bugs and things like that. So the biggest thing is, at least I know in the projects that I manage here, setting up I usually do a kickoff meeting with whomever I am working with, the stakeholders, my team, things like that. And then there's assignments that are made. who's going to do what within the process, and then constant weekly, touch base kinds of meetings too. Let's communicate. Here's where we're at. Did so-and-so get this done? Are you okay with this? Who needs help? Where are we now? Oh, that's not working. All right, now we need to pivot. But again, everything comes back to talking and working through. I do not do my job alone. I work with a team of 12 other instructional designers, and we all own different lines of the business, Yahoo Fantasy, Yahoo Sports, things like that. But we all do jump in and help when something's happening. And some of us have different talents in certain areas, and we all pull from that as well. And that's part of it too, is knowing that not everybody has to do every part of this by themselves if you do have a team, right? I'm fortunate to have one. I know there are positions that don't have those. But using the resources that we have and working with the people that we have, and coordinating all of that too. And then that also comes down to communication, learning who does what on your team, who's good at what. And really getting to understand how everybody can contribute to the overall goals that the company has.
Okay, so for you, in an ideal world, how or what would be the ideal competencies and skills and abilities that an instructional designer must have?
Oh, it's hard because and an ID does wear a ton of hats. So if you are thinking of doing this job, please look at it as you hope to enjoy doing lots of different things. But it really does start with, the learning theories and models, right? Starting at that point. Uh, and my team, we follow the ADDIE model. And that's a big deal because that's a built roadmap for you as it is already, right? So really truly understanding those models and learning theories and for what I do, especially adult learning theory is a really big one that you also need to understand. I have quite a few people on my team that were former educators and teachers of little kids and even up through high school, but really also understanding the different dynamic that it comes into play when you have adults and working with adults, right? Um, and then also there are tools that, that's the next thing. You get your educational foundation, and then the next thing is understanding the tools that you have and utilizing those. I heavily create training, since we are global, lots of e-learning initiatives through Articulate. And so learning that entire suite, Articulate, Rise, Storyline, those are key to what I do on a daily basis. And then the other thing you touched on, project management, right? Really, really learning the ins and outs. If you want to, taking like a Six Sigma course as a basic, going through agile project management, understanding how that needs to happen, why, how it works. And then another big part of my job actually is creativity. To your point, it really is. And creativity is not always just, I actually have an art background. My undergrad is in psychology and art. And it's not just, creatives that can paint and draw. It's outside of the box thinking. It's pivoting. It's working with people that you may not always know how to work with. You mentioned cultural barriers. There may be language barriers. So the creativity comes into play with knowing what your goal is, right? But sometimes you can't go about it in the normal way. And to the other side of creativity, I do a lot of graphic design work. I work with a lot of tools like Camtasia and Snagit and beyond, and making videos and all of that, because we want engaging content for our call center agents. So there is a lot of hats. And those are the parts of it that I would say are pretty critical to what I do.
Super interesting. And that is the bridge to my other question, because some of our students come from different backgrounds actually, right? And they want to make and I like the word transition, but I don't like it that much, because nowadays transition becomes somehow like not a negative word, but like a desperate word. I want to make a transition. No, I want to make a transformation, right? We're human beings. We're transforming ourselves every now and then, right? And myself, I'm a microbiologist, right? So I am a scientist, right? And I research on creativity, and I'm an instructional designer, and now I teach instructional design. So I've been transforming myself every now and then, and I love it. And I tell my students all the time that that is the learning process. We are in the learning process all the time. So how your background has helped you to be the instructional designer that you are today.
Yeah, I as soon as you said that, the word that came to mind for me was evolution.
Yes,
Right? To
perfect.
evolve. I started out, my degree is in psychology. I started out as a social worker for a group home. And I quickly, within 4 years there, learned that I had a hard time separating, right, from the people I was working with. I got called in for all um, suicide attempts and takedowns, and it was really rough. And I brought too much home with me in my heart, so I was like, okay, I need to do something different. Ended up going to have a family, and uh, most of the career decisions at some point started with taking care of family, right? What can I do to take care of family realistically? And then, I even drove a school bus for 5 years so that my husband could go back to school and be a teacher. He worked a full-time job. He went to school full-time. I drove a school bus, and I started a home tech business. Um, and Having a home tech business evolved into getting a position running tech, for a company. And then, hey, we've got these software and hardware products. You've got to support that. So it evolved, right? And I think when life presents those milestones to you, that's the choice you have to make. Do I dive into what I'm doing and want to do this, or do I pivot and go to something else? But a lot of times it was, it comes back to, again, we all have bills, we all have families, take care of and things. And so it was my love for learning, but also diving into what I was doing, because I wanted to do whatever I was doing very well, right? But as I stated earlier, there came a point that I had what I consider a little bit of a luxury to make a decision. And that's where I more started looking at and aligning with what I really loved to do. Um, and so I've always had a passion for learning and education. And I was like, nope, I'm going to go that path. I'm going to jump all in and do this. And I have never been upset by that decision and evolved into this. Um, Even in all of my volunteering that I've done over years and assistance in different areas, a lot of it comes down to educating people. Um, just, I just have always enjoyed that. I've gravitated towards that. And so I think my evolutionary path would have been to really bring me to this. And, there's things that, shoot, managing a school bus of like 60 some little kids, helps you in really big meetings when nobody wants to listen. I mean, all of that kind of little weird stuff, as you said, does come out. I've got a loud voice now, and and it's not always necessary, but we learn so much just from daily experiences along the way that it just culminates in who we are and who we become, and hones our skills.
Amazing. So inspiring. Yeah. Passion drives us everywhere, right?
Mhm.
And now that we talk about evolution and that you are like in this company that and you have like Intel inside Intel, in a technological or in a tech company about the future, right? What is your perspective about the future of instructional design, considering AI, considering education, and considering, and this is like an additional like year of the question, considering higher education or a program like, for example, the master track certificate or the master's on education, how those three things come into place for the future of instructional design in your perspective.
Well, I think the biggest thing in my perspective is AI, right? That is the big buzzword. It's everywhere. It's integrated into almost every facet of our lives. If we're not aware of it, it is. Everything we're starting to do, whether you go online and you have a problem with an order that you just, received and you're now sitting on with a chatbot, you are interfacing with AI. So every single thing that we're touching now is going to be involved with artificial intelligence. And as an instructional designer, um, I utilize a lot of tools in my daily role with that, but also I work for a company that integrates that technology within it. And the biggest thing about that is having a responsibility as to how these tools are utilized and what goes into them. Um, and I am proud of the company that I work for in the ethical dilemmas and questions that they go through when it comes to AI, and the use of it for their products. But as an instructional designer, I think sometimes we fear change. And this is one of those ones that really we need to start embracing for reasons of um, it's a great tool to utilize, and I'm referencing like using things like Gemini or ChatGPT, things like that. I'll give you an example that it has made my job a lot easier to create assessments. I'm able to take a PDF of the courses that I create and upload it into there and ask it to generate 10 multiple choice questions for me based on the content and get everything done within 2 minutes. Considering how much I have on my plate, that's a huge time saver. I will say though, it always needs to be checked. Sometimes it's not always right. And so looking at it as a tool, not as the end all be all, but as a piece of the job or a tool that you can use. Like if I wanted to create something to illustrate a process of how to do something within the Yahoo Mail app, right? I may create a video to do that. Well, that's a tool I would use. We use Beyond, we use Synthesia, we use some other tools like that, right? Those are tools that I would use to create that. I use Chat GPT or Gemini or AI to create something else. So it's just understanding that they can assist you. And the biggest thing about that I have learned when it comes to utilizing these tools, because I've taken quite a few webinars and things, is actually prompt writing. That's a big skill that needs to happen too. So I almost think that going forward, that in itself could almost be a class. you know, a mini part of a class in prompt writing, because you're only going to get out information from that tool depending on the kinds of questions and prompts you put into it. So I also think that e-learning and online learning is huge. We do, you know, we have it in-person trainings a lot of times, but really utilizing those tools as well, and how to use those tools to convey that training that you want, because I think the pandemic taught us that we have to be up and ready for things like that. I think a lot of people have decided that they would like those kinds of trainings to continue to occur on my own time when I want to do it, kind of things. So I think both of those are really important for instructional designers going forward, but especially 100% AI.
Okay, so we talked about the instructional designer nowadays and the instructional designer of the future, AI mostly, and give me another one.
Gamification. I really think that's another thing. And it's a hard thing because it's hard for a couple reasons. I believe it's not understood when and why to use gamification. Okay, not everything should be a game. And again, it's a tool in my opinion. And so we have learned, though, that it is a very interactive and engaging tool, right? So to create that takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And until there is software for educators, instructional designers, to almost the ease of use that we have now to create things from, you know, like videos and things that we have those tools currently, but to the level that we're truly creating almost like video games to learn with, there's a big gap. And so to create engaging games that are visually enticing, but aren't just, you know, points, badges, leaderboard kind of stuff where you're like, I've seen this before, I am bored, right? Where they actually are maybe leading you on a journey, and it's something that's engaging and you want to know more because of how this game is designed. That takes a lot of time and money, and either you have a big budget or you don't. And if you don't, that's where the creative aspect comes into play. There are ways to do things a little bit cheaper. But yeah, I see that as a big part of the future. We all know that we have a generation that their main form of entertainment is through video games. And that's who's coming up in the ranks of who we're going to train. They're already mostly here. So we have to provide content for how we know they want to learn. And doing gamification is going to be a big one.
Okay, great. Thank you for that advice. And a last thing for like an open mic, if someone has a question, if you would give an advice, would have an advice to give to our, for example, our students that are building a portfolio to give to future employers, what would you recommend to them?
So I just actually finished around about 4 weeks of interviewing for a position on our team. And I will tell you right away, I consistently had to go back to people and ask for samples of their work. It's great. We stress so much about the initial resume for good reason, right? To get through the bots that read through them, because people don't read resumes anymore. Computers do, you know, to get through those screening panels. And it is important to have a really good resume, but once you get your foot into that interview, you now need to show me what you can do. And so either I have, you know, people, they set up their own websites and they put information out there, whether they're hosting, you know, content through YouTube or the site itself, but show me what you've done. I understand a lot of times with companies, there's proprietary information you can't, right? But then take the time and create something on your own. Show me the skills that you have. I want to see what you can create. I want to see e-learning development. And I don't want to just read pages of text of what you've done, because I have a short attention span and a short amount of time to get through a bunch of people. I want to be engaged. I want to see things that I'm looking for that align with the role that we have. So the biggest thing for those portfolios, you know, create stuff. Spend the night. I know looking for a job is hard, but spend the evening, you know, developing a course and showing a course, you know, from start to finish, and job aids and deliverables that you're gonna have. That's a big thing, because everybody can tell you what they're good at, tell you things, but you really need to see it to see if it aligns with the business, you know, objectives and things that we have. So.
Okay. Thank you so much for those suggestions and advice. Maybe I'm gonna open here the mic if someone has specific questions for our guests. If someone wants to ask in the chat or ask Tori, if Tori can ask the question, or me. Stacey, do you have maybe some or any resource that you share with your team that you have for people that want to improve their portfolios, or I don't know?
Yeah, we do a lot of reading as a team. Actually, we have a book club for my team. And so we are constantly reading through different instructional design books and things like that. One of the things I would suggest for somebody that's looking to do this, a great book is The Accidental Instructional Designer by Cami Bean. That book will give you a really good overview of what it is to be an instructional designer. I have met Cami at a conference, and I've taken other webinars with her, and that perspective that she brings in that book really illustrates what the day-to-day parts of the job actually would be like, right? Some of the other books that maybe I would suggest, you know, Design for How People Learn. I've got it sitting next to me here, Julie Dirksen. Same with Talk to the Elephant. Those are great instructional design books. One my team is currently going through right now is Instructional Story Design by Rance Green, and how stories can be impactful when you create trainings, and why to utilize stories, you know, the psychology behind them, but how they, you know, help with the stickiness of really bringing that learning home. So those are things I would suggest. I would also suggest to anybody that's interested in this role, you really do have to have a love for learning. There are things that constantly evolve in this, because we are tied, at least with what I do, especially to technology. There's always advancements. There's always things going forward. The software that we use to do this, it is always evolving. So attending webinars, a lot of them are free, but going to conferences, getting in like on LinkedIn in networking groups of instructional designers is another really big deal. You know, I have in my area, in the Chicagoland area, the ATD, Association for Training and Development. There's a group just in the Chicago-based area, and you find out things that you can go and hear people talk about, what they're doing within the industry. All of that. It's just, it's as much as you can reach out and network, and find people that do what you do and then read about it and then learn on your own, just all makes your job easier actually, but also brings a lot to everybody else around if you share that knowledge.
Okay. Amazing recommendations.
And I've started getting some questions, so I can ask one of
Okay.
those. Real quickly, what was the name of that book that you just mentioned, Stacey?
We have the Accidental Instructional Designer by Cami Bean. Design for How People Learn and Talk to the Elephant by Julie Dirksen. And then Instructional Story Design by Rance Green. And Anything You Can Lay Your Hands On by Carl Kapp. That's another person you're going to want to read. But any of those books, but to start, the reason, and what we do on my team, when we have somebody that starts new, we do a mentorship with the new employee. And anybody that's assigned to me is automatically told, I don't care, if you have your master's in ID, I'm still giving you Accidental Instructional Designer to read. And we go through it. I find that book very valuable for the realistic expectations of what happens within this role.
Thanks, Stacey. And then one of the first questions that I got here was, I have some people who have worked in K-12 education and are looking to switch over to be instructional designers. And they have questions about what qualities of former teachers that you've worked with or that you think might help them stand out as instructional designers.
Pretty much every aspect of their job translates to what they do in instructional design. First, you already have a passion for helping people learn, which is a big part of that. But you also understand how to have to put together a lesson, right? How to put a lesson plan together. That's very similar on the same path as putting together, from a needs analysis, all the way through to an evaluation. Educators have already done this. I sit and have many nightly conversations with my husband over dinner about educational theory that you've already got, right? So the only thing that I think a lot of educators need is working outside of that age group, right? And starting to see how the difference is in adult learning theory, how that applies to adults, and then the tools that we use and how they're used to create, because you're not going to be potentially in front of a classroom anymore, right? There is a shift here because now, and I say it's a luxury where you're able to be in front of your student and you're able to see their faces. You're able to watch their body language. You're able to gauge how this lesson is going, right? You can pivot at any point. You cannot do that with e-learning. You are writing to, like in my case, I'm writing to a global audience when I create e-learnings. And so I have to make sure that every facet of what I am trying to communicate is clearly understood by my writing or by the videos we create or by the job aids. So that's the one area that kind of is a little difference in taking away that in-person led training, right? Which some instructional design is that. In my role, though, it is not. It's all e-learning, and that's where it may differ.
Thanks, Stacey. And then I have another question here about, are you able to talk about working as an instructional designer on a team of IDs versus being as, a few or maybe only one instructional designer in an organization?
Yeah, my previous role, I was the only one. And then I was the only person creating trainings, videos, and things. And now having a team. I love having a team. The support, the ideas, they're my frontline stakeholders. We have a policy that our team is the first set of reviewers we have for any of our materials. And they look at it through an ID lens, but they also look at it hopefully through who our actual audience is, right? Our call center agents. And so when I used to do it by myself, I would sometimes get in a mental bubble of, oh yeah, this is great. And it really wasn't. I get a bunch of calls or, from our clients like that this wasn't clear. So having the team helps to bounce those ideas around, helps to get the different perspectives, the different eyes on how people learn differently compared to just doing it on your own. If that answers the question.
I think so. So we have a few other questions here that have even come in the chat. We had one question here is, can you explain again what somebody should reflect on in their portfolio when applying for a job, or what you would recommend?
Yeah, so for me, one of the biggest things out in ID is from what I've seen that's developing online learning is using Articulate, right? That's the software, Storyline and Rise 360, any of those tools. And so if you can, if you're not used to using those, start watching YouTube videos, learn it, but then also create something. If you can get a free trial, great. Now, if you can't use that software, still create something, right? I don't care if you're going to end up using PowerPoint, because you can do a lot with PowerPoint and create that. But I need, as somebody that's going to be looking at you as a candidate, I need to know that you can walk the walk. I need to see what you can do. Because truth be told, we are all really good at selling ourselves in resumes, right? We all know how to write the resume to make us sound great so that we get our foot in and get that interview. But really, it comes down to you showing me your work is more so what I'm going to focus in on than reading your resume.
Thanks, Stacey. And then I have another question here for you. And just seeing the question, if you can answer it, maybe one of our faculty might have some thoughts on it. But the question that they have is they really appreciate your insight. They have over 25 years in the hospitality industry and working as a general manager all around the globe. And they're interested in your thoughts on how easy it would be to pivot to instructional design, especially if they're located internationally, such as Hong Kong, for example.
I think, my understanding of the hospitality industry is they are definitely really good at customer service and working with people, right? So that's your those are your stakeholders. And so you already have a lot of experience in doing that. And I will definitely defer to anybody on here, but I think that we talked about evolution. I think there's a lot of skills that you can take into an ID role from that perspective. Um, I would guess project management is a big part of the hospitality industry as well, getting things done when they need to happen. So there's going to be things that cross-translate. I think the only thing that may end up having to happen is the educational knowledge about theories and models and that background that may need to be put into play along with some tools, um, as far as like creating the actual courses, but I would definitely defer to anybody else to see how they could see aligning.
Yeah, and I wanted to add something. When we are creating learning experiences, um, we have to acknowledge the learning aspect, right? So we have to know how humans learn, right? So we have to know about theories, right? We have to acknowledge some models and we have to know the basic and the foundational theories about learning, right? We don't have to be experts on learning theories, but we have to know what a learning theory is, right? And how to create activities and how to create assessment that relates to a specific learning theory, right? If we want to actually assess a specific learning outcome or a learning yeah, learning outcome, right? I don't want to sound too theoretical right now, right? And I know that we want to talk about practical things, right? But we have to have a foundation and a foundational knowledge if we want to create learning experiences, right? So in creating learning experiences, we will have to have a foundational knowledge. And if we want to start at an entry level, right? It depends on what we are looking for. If we are evolving in a new discipline, we cannot expect to be an expert or apply to a senior position in a discipline that we don't have complete expertise in, right? I cannot be an engineer in rocket science, right? Because I don't have that expertise, but I can be junior in designing a window for a rocket, maybe. I don't know. And this is something that I'm inventing, right? So depending on what do you want to do, you will have to assess your own skills and knowledge. And that is where you make that mix and match with your future learning experiences, right? And how you choose to advance your own learning experiences, right? You cannot apply for a job as a senior instructional designer if you don't have the foundational knowledge in instructional design, right? That was the thing that I just want to say.
Tori, I just saw, I was looking in the chat, a couple of questions I just want to respond to. I saw Chris asked a question, how many projects do you expect to be in a portfolio? I am looking for two and really good ones that show me two kinds of different aspects, but I'm looking at, typically I don't want to just see one, right? I want to see at least a minimum of two in there. So if you can do that, I think that would be great. And then also I saw somebody said we don't have articulate will captivate you. Absolutely 100%. 100%. Even like I was saying, even down to PowerPoint, right? Because you actually can do quite a bit with PowerPoint. So don't get so hung up so much on what I was saying as far as the tool, even though that may be like a big buzzword in the ID world as far as tools go, because it's very expensive. So I don't want anybody to fork out money for a license on your own. But if you get a chance, a lot of times you sign up for a course and then you may get a free trial to utilize it. Definitely create something that is not going to have proprietary company information in it so that I can't see it, but put something on the side so I can see it. That would be my expectation. I think those were the only questions I saw that still needed answering.
I think so too. Thanks for answering those. And I did launch a poll here just at the end just to see if this event met your expectations. Thanks for the feedback there. I know that we are just about at time. So I do want to thank everybody who attended. I want to be sure to thank both of you. It was a great conversation. Always good to hear from you, Carolina, and Stacey. It was good to see you again as well. Want to give a chance to any of other faculty if there's anything they would like to say before we end for today.
I want to thank Stacey to join us tonight. I very much appreciate your insight and a lot of wisdom in your conversation with the group here. And I also want to thank Tori to help us set it up, and Carolina to guide the conversation. I have learned a lot tonight as well. No, thank you very much.
Well, that's impressive because I learned a ton from you. So
It's reciprocal. I appreciate it.
Well,
Same
thank you
here.
all for having me. I just, oh, go ahead, Dr. O.
No,
Thank you.
same here. It was so great to see you and reconnected with you, Stacey. And thank you so much for your time and sharing your experiences and advice with our students and who are interested in instructional design career. And also thank you, Tori and Carolina, for your help to make this session possible. Thank you so much for all.
Yes, thank you both.
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all. And also, anybody who's watching this recording back, if you have any questions as you watch this recording or thought of anything, or maybe you were here and didn't get to ask a question or think of something later, you can always reach us at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu, and we're happy to answer those questions, especially about our instructional design programs.
And if anybody wants to ask me anything, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to connect and answer any further questions.
Thank you so much. And with that, I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. And thank you again for joining us. We will have another one of these in January 29th, I believe. So stay tuned for that. And there will be another one, hopefully, in the spring as well. So stay tuned for that. This was recorded, so it will get sent out to everybody about 7 to 12 hours afterwards. If for some reason you don't get it, you can email us at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu, and we will email that link directly to you. Thanks again, everyone. Take
Thank you,
care.
Tori.
Thank you. Bye all.